Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the TFC. This is the official podcast of Tales from the Creek Entertainment. My name is Robert Ryan, and we are recording once again from beautiful, scenic downtown Moose Creek, Ontario. On today's podcast, I want to talk about the Ottawa International Film Festival 72-hour filmmaker contest. I also want to touch on a couple of subjects regarding s.g.n.r photo, as well as the Grand Bastardo and a couple of other items. But first, and probably what will take up most of this podcast, is the Ottawa International Film Festival. We are a mere 4 weeks away from the event, which kicks off on Thursday, February 12th, 2015. And for any of you who want to be there at the launch, we're going to be at a place called the Lieutenant's Pump at 361 Elgin Street in Ottawa, Ontario. So if you want to come by, say hi, show some support for the event or for myself, do feel free. That's going to be the night that we receive all of our wildcard packages, which are the bits and pieces that must end up in the final film, and that pretty much keeps people from cheating, keeps people from working for an entire year on their film project and, coming out with some enormous grandiose scheme, which obviously takes a lot longer than 72 hours to put together. So it should be an interesting time. I also find it an interesting timing for when they have this festival. Now, for those of you who know me, I'm a big fan of redlettermedia.com. And redlettermedia.com, they create online web content specifically about movies, movie reviews. They create their own video shorts. They create their own features. And one of the things that they have is a review show called Half in the Bag, which is sort of a skit-based movie review. And what they refer to this time of year as, it can only be summed up in one way, because these are the dump months of the year where Hollywood puts out their lesser quality films, or films they don't think are the cream of the crop. Red Letter Media has dubbed this time of year, fuck you, it's January. And really, that's what it feels like in a lot of the years. It feels like the movies that are put out are very lackluster, very much a waste of time. I find it interesting that the Ottawa International Film Festival chooses to have its little slice of the year immediately following Fuck You, It's January, which makes me wonder if they're doing it on purpose to try and bring a little bit of something special back to film. I don't know if they're even really aware of it. Maybe they are, but I just find it interesting timing. Now, in terms of the actual film festival competition itself, we are currently in pre-production, which means that we're busy building sets, compiling story ideas. We don't have a finished script, obviously, because we don't know what's going to be in it until February the 12th. But we have gone ahead and done some additional things. We've also secured the rights to a really cool music track by an Atlanta-based band called Used for Comparison, which I'm hoping the rules will allow me to squeeze into the final film. I think it's great. It's an awesome song. And special thanks to Charles from Used for Comparison for allowing me to use this in my film. Now, one of the things that I may require still, even though we have the makings of a kick-ass soundtrack, may need some voice actors. Because this is going to be an animated short, of course I can build sets and compile story ideas ahead of time, but there's only so many voices that I can do on my own, so I will have the contact information for the TFC at the end of the podcast for anyone who thinks they might want to contribute maybe an hour or two of their time recording a few lines of dialogue for the cause. Now, on the night of February 12th, 2015, while I'm on my way to and on my way from the wildcard, I guess, ceremony, for lack of a better term, I'm going to be doing a Thoughts from My Car podcast. So that will be while I'm driving to the event, while I'm driving home from the event, what my thoughts are, where I'm at this time. I'm hoping to be able to get it up the same night. Can't guarantee anything, but I should be able to get it up within 24 hours. And it's going to be sort of a rolling documentary of the process itself, what we're going through, what we're doing, etc. I figure if the movie itself isn't going to be the greatest on earth, and I'm not saying that I'm going to put out something really crappy just to make a competition video, but let's just say things don't go 100% wonderfully, at least there's a really cool story behind it. So we will be doing some Thoughts from My Car probably a lot more often during this competition. And of course, that leads me a lot more smoothly than I usually end up doing, I might add. That leads me right into Thoughts from My Car. There are a couple points that I wanted to touch on with Thoughts from My Car, that being the s.g.n.r. photo podcast. We're experimenting with some new ways to record the show. We're trying to balance sound quality with the lo-fi charm that it's known for, of course, it being the only photography-based podcast that's willing to admit that it's recorded from inside of a moving vehicle and not just sounding that way. Because of this, you can expect to see more shows, but they will be a lot shorter. For those of you who had been listening to the previous episodes before we sort of rebooted the franchise, episodes were falling within the 45 to 55 minute time frame, and that wouldn't be bad if it was more of a structured show, if it was something that had a higher production value to it. But 45 to 55 minutes of a very nasal-sounding, noisy podcast can probably wear people down. We're looking at most to put these into the 15 to 20 minute range, which is still fairly lengthy, but at the same time concise enough to really get to the point, get in, get out, get the message across, and not ramble on too much and not get too far off track. So if you do happen to notice over the next little while that these podcasts, that the sound is sort of moving around in terms of quality, it's getting a little better, a little worse, a little this, a little that, there's different techniques that we're going over, that we're going to be going through to try and get the best possible balance for the Thoughts from My Car podcast, and then we're going to go with whatever works best. Of course, what works best for me may not work best for all of you. Your feedback is going to be critical on this. So if you can leave feedback on the podcast, and of course, every podcast of Thoughts from My Car will have our contact information, so you can leave direct feedback about what you think about how one episode compares to the next. Your feedback would be crucial to all of this and getting it sort of settled out sooner rather than later. And another thing that we have been debating around here at the TFC with regards to Thoughts from My Car has been trying to add a visual element for those of you who basically follow all of what we do through the YouTube channel for Tales from the Creek Entertainment. I do understand that not everybody downloads the podcast. Not everyone goes through the trouble of that. You don't really have the time, or it's one of those things where you listen when you have a few moments and you don't really feel like downloading. You just want to stream it and that's it and be done with it. We're going to try and add a little bit of a visual appeal, because right now there's just sort of a logo that plays for X number of minutes, however long the podcast is, and then it's over. So we're going to try and add something a little more visual, give it a little bit more appeal. It's not going to be anything super fancy, but it should be something that's a little entertaining. Hopefully more than just a little. And for the second straight time, that gives me a nice clean segue into what I want to do next, because speaking of visual elements, s.g.n.r photo videos are in production. We should be going live as of next week. I'm not entirely certain what the schedule is going to be for those, because obviously we have the Grand Bastardo videos that come out every Friday. We try to put out this podcast once a week. And I'm not entirely certain where the s.g.n.r photo videos are going to fall, especially since it's a video component, and right now most of the video energy is going into the Ottawa International Film Festival's competition. Grand Bastardo, of course, is a few episodes ahead of the curve, so we do have a little bit of a buffer there before we run out of episodes. But we will be looking to get into a regular schedule once the competition completes. Updates to the actual s.g.n.r photo website, however, right now are on hold. There's going to be a lot of things to update, a lot of portfolio bits to update, gallery things to update. So that's going to take place after the competition has completed. The reason for that is I want to be able to do a really good job on the website, put it all back together the way it should be, and not do a lot of patchwork on it over and over and over again, because that's going to look worse. I'd rather let it sit sort of how it is for now, and once we have the additional free time that the film festival is over and done with, everything is complete, we have the time that we need to go back and do things right. And of course, once it is done, and once everything is ready, obviously, the Facebook fan page, this podcast, the Thoughts From My Car podcast, those will all have updates for each and every one of you. Now, I'm not sure if this will qualify as a 3 for 3 in the category of smooth and professional segues, but we do have another website that will be in the works, this time for the Grand Bastardo. I have had a few people ask me if the Grand Bastardo will move beyond the Facebook fan page, which is a little strange because it's also the only one that really has an incredibly active Twitter feed associated with it. But yes, there will be a website that is coming out in the near future. I can't say for exactly when, but in the near future. And it's going to incorporate the Twitter feed. It's going to have links to the Grand Bastardo videos. It's also going to have things like character biographies, maybe some other things, bits of trivia or whatever. And the reason why it's going to have that is then I don't have to do a whole bunch of exposition episodes, although I probably will end up doing so anyway. Now, in terms of time frame, this is probably going to be a longer term project than the update to the s.g.n.r photo website. And the reason is that s.g.n.r photo is a little more established, and it's a little more long-suffering in terms of its lack of updates. The Grand Bastardo, at the very least, has had a really, really good run of steady, regular content being put out through the YouTube channel. So I want to bring up the s.g.n.r photo stuff before I get to work on the Grand Bastardo website. So let's aim tentatively for like a March-April launch, but there will be more news as we get closer. Now, in the meantime, before we get into the website development or the web development side of things, there's going to be a bit of a shift in terms of the Grand Bastardo, in terms of the videos. The videos are going to start taking on longer-term storylines. There's going to be overarching themes. Don't worry, this isn't going to get bogged down. It's just because I don't want the episodes themselves to go beyond the 2 to 3 minute mark, which is the nice comfortable bar that we've set so far. But some of the jokes take a little bit longer to set up, obviously, so why not set them up over a couple of episodes to pay them off? But don't worry, we're going to make sure that the individual episodes are not boring in and of themselves, because otherwise what's the point? There's still going to be the absurdist humor and everything that the Grand Bastardo is known for. We're just going to stretch out storylines over multiple episodes and keep them as funny and as irreverent as possible for you in the meantime. Now, because we are going to be getting into longer-term storylines, this means that we are going to be introducing new characters. We are probably going to be needing voice actors for these recurring characters. And again, if anybody would like to step up and see, or step up and contribute a little bit of themselves to the project, I would be very, very honored to have you on board. Obviously, I will be leaving the contact information where you can sort of submit your request to volunteer at the end of the program. Now, in terms of numbers of characters and numbers of voice actors that are going to be needed, as I said, the Grand Bastardo has a bit of a buffer, which has left me some time to write new material. Once I see how the writing on the page is looking and what the writing on the wall is for number of characters that we're going to need, I'll have a bit of a better idea of how many people I'll need or how many people I would like to see possibly sign up for a little bit of voice acting. And it's really just a few lines here or there. The bulk of it is still going to be carried by the two main characters, which is the Bastardo and Steve. But, you know, if I can get a few other cool people on board, that's never, ever a bad thing. For our final segment of the TFC for today, I want to talk about something that actually is not a part of the TFC or something that the TFC is currently doing, but rather a suggestion by a fan of the TFC, and that's called s.g.n.r, or Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And from what I can tell, this is a phenomenon that's been around for about the past 3 or 4 years. It's something that's been around for a little while, not incredibly mainstream, but there appears to be a lot of YouTube and podcast presence over the last 3 to 4 years with regards to this. And what I can discern from it is it's a lot of very soft-spoken, very ambient, very whispered type podcasts, YouTube videos that are meant to invoke sort of a physical response when you listen to them. That is to say that as you listen to them, you'll feel sensations such as sort of the hair tingling on your arms, you'll get goosebumps. It's sort of designed that way. It's designed to invoke that kind of response by using aural stimulus, special sound, or the way that sounds are presented, ambient noises, ambient soundtrack, along with the whispering, the soft-spokenness of the presenter of the podcast or video. And it was suggested that maybe this would be something that we could try. Well, I'm usually up for a challenge, and once the Ottawa International Film Fest is over and done with, I might just give this one a try. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it as a full-blown video. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it as only an audio track, but this sounds like an interesting experiment and definitely something that's worth trying at least once, just to see, one, if I can do it, if I'd be any good at it. Maybe it's an avenue for expanding the TFC overall, and seeing what comes of it. So I want to thank Lee, who made this suggestion to the TFC, and that leads me, oddly enough, to my fourth very, very smooth and professional segue, which is our contact info, if you want to leave a suggestion of your own. For those of you who would like to leave feedback, comments, suggestions, questions, or whatever comes to mind about the TFC, you can contact us in the following ways. By email, you can contact us at inbox@talesfromthecreek.ca. We actually have a domain. We have an email address set up specifically for the talesfromthecreek.ca, so you don't have to send it through my old Gmail account. You can send it to inbox@talesfromthecreek.ca. For those of you who are wanting to follow us on Twitter, we can be found at Creek Tales. That's at Creek Tales, CreekTales. And of course on Facebook, you can find us at the fan page, facebook.com/Creek Tales. All as one word. And that is our show for today. Obviously, as we continue through the next few episodes, expect to hear a lot of what we're doing for the film festival, as well as everything else surrounding Tales from the Creek Entertainment. And until next time, I thank you for joining us. Good night.